Okay, welcome everybody. Buongiorno. Welcome to this panel on the Messaging is the Future of News. My name is Abigail Edge. I'm a senior newsroom strategy consultant at Fathom. I'm joined today by my colleague Fergus Bell, CEO of Fathom, Vincent Ryan from the Google News Initiative, and Styli Charalambous from the Daily Maverick in Africa. So, Fergus, let's get started.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to be here. There's still some seats at the front if there's people standing at the back. So I'm going to turn on my microphone and talk about why we're talking about messaging and a pilot that we are embarking upon. So I work for Fathom, and we are kind of the people in the middle of the publishers and the technical delivery part of this, trying to explore how messaging could be an upgrade for the way that we deliver news via mobile. So reader experience on mobile can be poor. Lots of people are trying to make it better, but it still could be better in places. Social media is definitely not what it was, even compared to a year ago. We now know the value of our data as newsrooms and journalists, and we need to take ownership of our distribution. We're at a point now where there is an opportunity for messaging to be something quite powerful, and there have been times in the past where the industry has not taken that moment where they had an opportunity for new types of delivery and owned it. So everybody uses messaging apps every single day, and there's a really nice note in the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism in 2021 in their digital news report that highlights that there's a 40% gap in the overall use of messaging apps and use for news, which is quite shocking. And so if people are using messaging, why are we as news organizations not embracing that as much as we should be, or as much as we could be? So there's a little bit of technical jargon that I'm going to take you through, but I will break it down. So we're going to be talking about rich communication services. You have all used SMS on your phones. Then there was that really weird period of time where you had MMS, where you used to be able to send a photo and sometimes it sent, and another time you got a really long link and it was split in two. Now we're at RCS, which is Rich Communication Services, and it's a protocol that is being rolled out globally on, I think, all Android phones, certainly new ones, and on most old ones. And what it does is enables rich graphics, carousels, video. You can share location information. You can run payments through it. And Google has one has an RCS product for business called RCS Business Messages, which we sometimes call RBM. We sometimes call RCS Business Messages. If we use any of those, that's what we're talking about. But it's really important to say that the actual it's a protocol, so it's not the way that it's delivered is not owned by anyone as such. It's the format with which it's done. Just to put this into context, because I imagine many of you in this room have iPhones, and you are not normal people in terms of news audiences, because unless you're in certain countries, because actually a lot of people in the world do not have iPhones, they have Android. So everyone uses SMS, so you can see on this data, which is I think up to March, that 100% of people use SMS in some way. Rich messaging users is 81%, and then WhatsApp is at 50%, but RCS Business Messages users is now at 24%. To put that into context, this is what the growth of RCS Business Messages looks like. Last year there was a 40% growth, and that's a 30% penetration of smartphones. So it's going up and up and up very quickly. So why are we not embracing this or looking at opportunities? Well, we are. And so we thought about, what does news via RCS or RBM look like? It can be conversational, it can be delivered individually, and it can be distributed at scale. We at Fathom really struggled to communicate what this actually meant to people, and so we had to build versions of it to show people what this would look like. And I'm using the Daily Maverick home screen, agent screen for RCS to show you what this looks like when you would come across a news brand. So you've got the header image, you've got the brand logo, and we're thinking of this almost like the masthead. You have the contact information, you're able to go through to the website, you're able to put all your terms and conditions in there, all the kind of policy and privacy policy, and then you can also have an editorial description. And then this is on the left is my face. Sorry. This is what it looks like when you're actually communicating with it. So this is the Fathom demo version on the left. You can see that you get that tick mark to show that it's been authenticated, and then you can start to deliver images. You can respond with buttons. On the right, our partners at the Premium Times. This is a screenshot from their version. You can see that we can deliver story carousels. And links to websites. Now, when we started this, no one was looking at this for news, and so brands and companies were using this as carousels for sale items. And we thought, well, how can we repurpose that same framework for news stories? Also, for every single click point that you get to, there is data for that. And the thing that we really like, and we think that we see the opportunity here, is that the data and the metrics belong to the people running this, the publisher that would be doing this. You get that data. So you get people's phone numbers, you get, and that becomes their unique ID. You get to know when something was delivered, when people are reading it, where someone might drop out in the process, so that you can feed that back into your design. You can also receive free-form text from people, so people can send, or photos or video, people can send things back to you through this. And you can track your recurring visitors or anything else that you ask for. And at the moment, no one else is monetizing that data, which is, again, quite an exciting opportunity for the news industry. So I'm not going to get too technical, but this is brand new, and so we really needed to understand how this all works. And there's kind of three entities involved in making this type of messaging work in terms of a product. You've got the news organization who focus on the storytelling, on the content, potentially on the advertising, on sponsorship, and they receive their data and analytics. You have the agency in the middle. This, at the moment, is us in this case, where we are kind of bridging the gap between the editorial and the technical. And you have the technical delivery organization at the end, the CPaaS provider, who connect basically the bot to the phone networks. And there are a number of companies in the world that do that, and you have to work with them because they have all the relationships and contracts with the phone companies. So when we're starting when we've started to work with organizations, we start to map out what an experience might be like for someone. And we start to build a flow. So we think about what the trigger for an interaction would be, how they're going to be welcomed into this experience, what their opportunities are, where there are decision trees. And then the hard bit is we have to turn it into something that looks like this, which is not necessarily something that we're all used to working with, and we've had to really learn how to do this and discover that there are experts out there in the world who design and build these all day, every day, none in service of the news industry. So we've had to identify them and work with them, which we are. So I'll just talk briefly for a few more moments about how we've actually turned this into a pilot. A few months ago, we started this pilot, and the remit was to create a prototype product for news and really reimagine how journalism can be delivered in a new format. None of what we're going to show you or talk about is plugging an RSS feed into a bot or into any kind of delivery format, because this offers a completely new way of delivering journalism and breaking journalism down and serving the audience, and it deserves a completely fresh approach to how we do that. Once we've got the ideas, we test internally and externally, and the idea is that we improve it as we start to see how people interact with it, because no one has ever interacted with something like this for news before. And then we think about, well, if this works here, could it work in other places? We've got 3 partners, one of which is represented on the stage. So we're working with the Daily Maverick in South Africa, the Standard in Kenya, and the Premium Times in Nigeria. And this process of development has been we've used kind of a co-design method. So we've worked with the partners to understand what they might want to get out of it, what their audience needs are, where there are opportunities that they would like to identify that they've maybe not been able to explore before. And then we think about how to turn the editorial concepts and the business concepts into something that might work with this tech. And then we've gone and started to create things. And we're right now at the point of testing what we've built and getting feedback from the partners to see how that works. And we're very fortunate on this to be working with the Google News Initiative, but also with Google product teams, which has been very exciting and intimidating, but exciting.
Thank you, Fergus. So Vincent, tell us a little bit about RCS from your end at Google.
So I think one of the big issues with RCS, RBM, SMS, MMS, CPaaS, and the agent is the alphabet soup of different names and different anagrams of everything. We can forget about that. This is a new platform for delivery of news. It's an entirely new way to deliver news that hasn't been done before. And that's what's really interesting from our point of view. Messaging is an exciting area that's growing. Google is very interested in it. We want to continue to see it grow. There's been a large campaign in the US, which has been quite public, to get Apple to adopt RCS as the protocol that they will use in messaging, which would boost this even further. So far they haven't, but we hope they soon will. And the goal of this pilot is really to understand, not from a Google point of view, but to be led by the experts in storytelling, to be led by editorial experts in how can this be used for news. what is the best way to break stories with this, how they should look, how they should feel, and really to take this technology that exists and put it in the hands of the editorial teams. This has taken a huge amount of education. Fergus has had to go back to beyond basics, I would say, where we had to introduce basically what is messaging and start there and then build up. The buy-in that we've gotten from the Daily Maverick, from Premium Times, from Standards has been fantastic. They've been really excited to work with us and to see what can happen. For me, the moment when I realized this is really, really exciting opportunity, this is something that could grow, was when I saw a prototype that I don't think it was ever actually released, which was around the World Cup, which was an interactive match program during which you could go through it and scroll through the various carousels to get the goals and updates after the game. And it was fantastic. And when I saw that, I was like, this is a tool. This is not just a platform, but this is a storytelling tool. Essentially what it allows you to do is to build a web app that lives in someone's messages. So you get all of the functionalities of your app, your news app, such as your Guardian app, your Maverick app, whatever it would be. But instead of the biggest barrier to app adoption being that you have to get someone to download the app, it lives already on their phone. And that full level of interaction is there, and it's just how it's used. So that's kind of what we're really, really excited to see in these 3 different pilots, which all hopefully will have slightly different outcomes. They have subtly different goals, with some seeking to go drive membership, some seeking to drive subscriptions, and some really emphasizing the storytelling aspects. And from a Google point of view, this is a whole new area that we've never seen growth in this. From a product point of view and from an engineering point of view, there is a kind of simple attraction to do, as Fergus said, to do an RSS feed. That's not a product failure. It's just a failure of imagination, how it can be used. We need the imagination of the news organizations and editorial innovation on how best this can be delivered and used. And that's why we are reaching out to partners through Fathom and to seek what are the limits of what can be done with this? What is the best way to tell engaging stories? And we're really, really excited to see where it goes.
Thank you, Vincent. Styli is one of the 3 pilot partners for this experiment. How has the experience been like for you, and why did you want to get involved?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to be able to see something like this unfold and to participate in a new channel for us. The motivation here was Android makes up the biggest portion of our mobile audience. Mobile is the biggest share of audience. So that makes Android users the biggest individual segment of users for us. So we're always interested in seeing what else we can do to drive engagement with that audience, because they also have the highest bounce rate as well. So that was one of the things that really interested us. Could we put a new format in front of people, potentially younger audiences as well, that we know are avoiding the news in ways, and formats is one way of trying to address that. And so for us, the measures of success would be getting in front of more people, getting in front of younger people, getting them to stay longer, and then bringing them into the fold until they're older enough and grumpy enough to become members. And then also you'll see in some of the demo material there that our sports editor's dog Biscuit has been a huge success for us in driving membership in our campaigns, and she's attention hungry, so this was another platform to get her in front of people, but also the opportunity to experiment in a fun way, to break things down, make it more interactive, have a little bit of fun with this, and to be able to track each of the experiments, which buttons work, what promoted bit of material works there. Is it just the storytelling? Is it collections of stories? Is it themes? Can we test that? Book offers or newsletter subscriptions when we can see they're more deeply engaged. So all those things are really appealing. And then obviously the big one for us is that this is a sort of an off Daily Maverick platform opportunity to really extend what we do on the site, but without that loss of control. So being able to have those phone numbers, being able to have control over that channel, and so that someone isn't going to flick a button on some black box and it's all gone, right? And so all those things were appealing to us, to be able to participate in that. And and as we've shown in Africa and other places, Android makes such a big part of the ecosystem that we'd be silly not to try and experiment with something like this.
Tell me a little bit about the audience for the Daily Maverick and how you've managed to get this project to really connect with them, or how you hope that it will connect with them. How is it targeted towards the readers that you have?
Yeah, so we know that our mobile audience, we predominantly do long-form journalism, a lot of investigations, stuff that, sometimes takes 2,000, 3,000 words, a lot of longer videos and short-form documentaries, etc. So it's long-form stuff. So we're always interested in how can we now package that stuff, because we believe that the long-form journalism that we do changes the world, and we've seen it change our world so many times. And that is the foundation upon which we now need to then go and package this stuff and put it in different formats and cut it up and make it more interactive and get it in front of more people and younger people. And so that is our hope, that we can really expand this good work that we're doing and use technology in interesting ways to get it in front of these new audiences for us.
So storytelling via message is quite hard when you're thinking from the start. And when we were putting together a demo to kind of start thinking about this, we basically got everything wrong, because until you've tested something out, you don't understand the pace that someone wants to consume a story. You don't understand that a full screen of text is too overwhelming. You don't understand how someone wants to navigate through a story until you've actually tested it. So those workflows that I showed you, when we first put them in and create the version, they're terrible, because they're boring and they don't work, or they're too overwhelming. So we worked with all the partners to go through a number of considerations and start to think about this. So this is not like dealing with a customer service agent. You are dealing with a news brand that you trust, that you like, that you have some affinity with. So it's got you, while you're interacting with a bot, it needs to have a persona. And what could that persona be? Could there be several personas? And what are the kind of goals and contexts of that persona? One, when you're thinking about the bot, or you're thinking about the guide, or even the concierge through the process, what's the name? Does it have a face? So you saw in my one we used my face for it. Daily Maverick are using Biscuit. In the one of the other organizations is using an investigations editor, so the face of the journalist behind the story. What's the tone of voice? Do you want to be formal? Do you want to be casual? Do you want to be fun? It's really, and you can't know what that is until you actually see the messages coming in, and you realize that you think you're talking casually until you realize that you sound very formal via message. So how human should you seem? Also for the audience, they need to understand what value they are getting from the conversation. So what are they getting through rich messaging that they're not getting elsewhere? How interactive can they be? And also, can you give them, do they have the signposts to understand what they can click on, where they can do it? It's very intuitive, and people can get to grips with it very quickly, but no one has experienced news in this way before. So what works and what doesn't? And is it satisfying? So something that we've talked a lot about is, should it be a finishable experience, or should it just be constantly updated? Is it more satisfying to finish and then check in with it the next day, or would you like to kind of have news on demand? In terms of the editorial, what type of story will work? We know that some stories absolutely don't work, and some really do, and it's a case of how do you break it down? What we're not doing is just giving out a link to the story on the partner's site, because we can be a lot more experimental and innovative than that. so how can we utilize the tech to bring out the story, but also meet the goals by driving traffic or growing subscriptions? And there's the really important question, which I should have put at the top, is what should the pace be? That's been something that we've really found interesting, how fast someone wants to consume something. Does someone want to come back later to it? Do they want a reminder to come back if they only got halfway through a story? And then in terms of revenue, how does this fit in with the funnel? How do you convert users? And how do they pay? So with one of the partners, we are integrating payment. In Kenya, M-Pesa is the thing that everyone uses to pay for everything, and so we're working out how we can get that into the flow. And then finally, on terms of considerations, how do you want to trigger this? And this is really important. So you can have a QR code on your site, you can have a button on mobile, you can have a QR code on a piece of paper. We were thinking about texts for people, but then someone made the point that in some countries texting is not included in your package, and actually that's a cost, but a missed call is not a cost for people. So you can actually trigger something using a missed call if you want to, or the publisher can push out a message if you've already given your number. It's demo time, the most nerve-wracking bit. It is not live because I wouldn't subject anyone to that. So we've got a demo, and actually we're going to talk through the Daily Maverick, and I will kind of talk through the flow, but Styli, feel free to augment my my description as we go. But obviously, the star of the show is on the screen there. So first version. So we can ask what's your name, and my colleague Gary kindly recorded this demo. Once you've put in your name, it remembers you. So you will now be referred to by your name throughout the whole flow. As you can see, this is the carousel of daily news. And the images are very low in size, so it's not a big data burden. Click Tell Me More, and this is an opportunity to kind of show off how you can make a rich card in order to tell a segment of a story. I have no idea what this story is, but...
There was a shortage of antivenom in South Africa and a couple of snake bites that caused a bit of public panic, as it would. But I think the great part there is being able to, as you say, break it down into different pieces and being able to showcase some of the top stories and being able to test all of this is really exciting. The other point about the chat format, I mean, I think we all saw when OpenAI released ChatGPT, the impact that chat had on that technology and that experience, right? I mean, the stuff in the background was all working the same pretty much, and it was really only the introduction of the chat format that really saw it explode. So we're hoping there'll be something similar happening.
We built into the flow is this catalogue of your newsletters. How important is that?
Yeah, newsletters are huge for us. They're a big part of driving audience, driving revenue, driving membership for us as well. We've got, I think, over 30 newsletters for an organisation our size. That's quite a lot, and so they're key for us. And they're also great ways, to move people into a known relationship from anonymous browsing. So that is kind of our entry, sort of Trojan horse into membership for us, and it's really important on multiple cases. So that's why, rather than putting a membership offer in front of people who are potentially younger and maybe not, that well known to us or vice versa, let's use newsletters as that entry point. And so it was a big part of us to promote newsletters in this channel.
So those of you who are following along on the screen, you've also seen this idea that you can ask questions to Daily Maverick, so you get input from the audience. Okay. You could be mesmerized by this for hours. You'll have to wait for it to be out there in the world. So I can just show you what some of the other partners are doing. So the Premium Times in Nigeria are taking a a completely different approach to the brief, and they've decided to focus on breaking down long-form storytelling and investigations. So their persona is their investigations editor, rather than a character or a bot or an animal. And the subject of their launch story or kind of interactive here is the impact of climate change. And you can see in that carousel, they've broken down the individual stories that were featured in this piece. And so it's presented in modular sections, and the approach here is also different. Doesn't have to be delivered in a linear way. You can click on each one, and it's not dependent on having read the other. And some of the challenges that we found around this is how to break down this so that people can understand it and understand the quotes and what's a quote and what's a block of text or information. And we're thinking even more now about actually, should a text be an image card? Should a quote be an image card? And that's how we draw that out. What are the ways that we might use emoji to highlight different parts of text? And then at the very end, there's also a way to sign up for membership, because that was one of the goals that they needed. So at the very end of the flow, there is the opportunity to do that, and you can get, again, simply put in an email address, and then that information will go to them. And then the last one is under construction. So we don't have anything to show you. What we've been learning in this is that there's different ecosystems in different countries, and that's exciting, but we have to kind of work out how to navigate that. So we've been, with the Standard are, again, taking an entirely different approach, and they're very, very focused on driving subscription through their flow. And actually, one of the challenges that they came to us with and said that they've got e-papers that they want to deliver, and they want to deliver that via mobile, and they need people to pay for that. And so is there a way that we can get payment for e-papers and delivery all happening through RCS? And so that's what we're working on now. That is a very different proposition to the editorial side. So that's why this is still under construction, but it very much is under construction. What they also wanted was a way to connect to their support desk. So there will be a kind of a live agent integration here, and they want to be providing teaser content for those, for the online access and the e-papers in carousels. So a completely different challenge, but the nice thing is it's totally adaptable to what a publisher might want, and they're building it in the way that they want. And I think the evolution is that there's at some point going to be a similarity between the types of integrations that people want, and once it's built, those things should be able to be replicated as other people want them.
Thanks, Fergus. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, then we'll hand over to the audience. So if anyone does have questions, we'll leave about 10 minutes for those at the end. I want to start off by asking you, Styli, about the ability of RCS to convert subscribers or introduce people to your membership base, boost your newsletter subscriptions. Why do you think RCS is such a good platform for that?
Well, I hope to have a real hard data for you soon when it launches. Look, it is primarily targeted as a top-of-the-funnel exercise. This is how we're positioning it. But you got to start somewhere, right? And I think the current format and the current thing could be working a lot better. So this opportunity to change the format around, to make it more interactive, to give people the opportunity to have more choice in a different format on something that is native to the device. I think all those things will certainly give it a better chance than currently what's being offered to those users. So, and then also the ability to experiment and have a little bit of fun with it as well. So all those things.
Vincent, you look like you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to say the figures yet, but we have seen with some other brands who have done this at scale that one of the things it reduces is churn. So it takes the churn rate down quite a lot. And then for people who had left, it really boosted re-engagement, which were vital metrics for that brand.
Fascinating stuff. And why was it so important for Google to get involved in this project?
Well, from a Google News Initiative point of view, this is like our kind of raison d'etre is to support innovation within the news industry, and as an attempt to bring sustainability back to it. This is innovative, and there is a path for this to be revenue generating. It's a completely new vertical that hasn't been monetized before. I don't personally work in anything to do with monetization, so I'm really the wrong person to ask about that. But on editorial innovation, which is what I do a lot more work on, I think this is really exciting. Our goal is always to support the ecosystem, to grow the ecosystem, and to help in any way possible. And we see this as an exciting new development that we are hoping we can scale.
Fantastic. So obviously this is a brand new technology. We're really experimenting with this for the first time. And I want to talk about some of the challenges and the opportunities that have come out of that. Fergus, let's start with you. Like, how has the process been working on this project?
I used to have a full head of hair before working on this project. No, what's really exciting is to have a completely blank canvas, but know that there is a lot of technology behind it that could be interesting. What is really difficult is there's no one that we've been able to look at as a starting point because it's not been done before. And the most difficult thing was explaining to people what we were trying to do because no one could visualize it. So the reason why I'm showing you this on the screen over and over again is because now you can kind of understand what we're talking about, and you can actually see it. And there's probably people in the room who are thinking, well, we could actually probably do that with a carousel. Like those carousels, each one can be a GIF. How can you break down a story into 10 cards that you swipe across? What are the and actually this is a really nice part of the Mavericks flow, which is you linked directly to your bookshop.
Yeah, that's something we'd love to test and see whether the products that the books that we publish and some of the merch that we sell through the shop would be able to drive some more traffic and some more interest through that. So that'd be an interesting test to see how that goes.
I think the other challenges are kind of understanding how it all works. So I've now become more of a technical expert in RCS and carriers and all of that, so that actually it's not version 2 or more partners or people who want to come and do this and really build it out. A lot of the questions have been answered, and it's tricky, and also it changes so fast. The landscape has evolved so much in 6 months that, and it's kind of working out how to be on top of that, but also being able to say, this is an opportunity for the industry and this is what they need. And so there's no content management system for this yet. But that's clearly something that we need to work out, or we need to work out API integrations. A lot of this is manual at the moment, but that's obviously a natural evolution, and we're thinking about it. So those are the key challenges.
And how about you, Styli, from the other side, from the editorial side of things? What kind of challenges have you encountered in putting this together?
Yeah, with any new platform that is going to be acting as an extension of your brand out there, there's always the risk of the experience not living up to the expectations. When you do press play and you go live with this, there's always the heart palpitations of those early days that it does everything that it needs to, and it doesn't end up affecting the reputation that we have in the market of being a trusted news brand, and you want to be able to deliver for the technology to deliver the experience that it should. And then there's always just it's something that's starting out that's so new. There's just so many unknowns, and you have to kind of always takes longer. There's always challenges that you never expect that pop up, where there's so many moving parts, right? It's not just us and the audience, the reader. There's the networks, there's the integrations, there's the plumbing, and at any stage there's there's a hurdle or a snake pit that's ready to jump out at you. So you have to dedicate the time and the patience to figuring those things out.
And how about resource in terms of staffing? Is it something that you've had to dedicate a team to, or how many people do you have working on it?
We've got a few people who've carved out some of their time to work on this, and so it's been sort of fits and starts as the project has demanded. But it hasn't been too onerous because a lot of the heavy lifting on the technical side has been done by our partners in this, and so for us it's been figuring out what kind of user experience and what kind of content we wanted to focus on. And then what that would require for us should this thing take off and scale and becomes a long-term thing for us. And so being able to have the benchmarks ready to test, have the measures of success identified ahead of time, and then go through a process of testing all of this stuff to see what works for us. So.
Can I just speak to that point? One of the things that we did with all partners was make sure that we kind of asked them about resourcing and making sure that this wasn't a heavy lift. So before we even asked people for individual content, we really thought about how it would be contributed. So the idea is that actually it's stories that have already been created. The thing that we just need support from is, and actually it's a kind of learning opportunity, is how to break that story down into the assets that could be delivered in this way. So the story should be the same, but the formats that's the kind of creative thinking around delivery here.
So we've got about 10 minutes left for questions. If anybody has a question, raise your hand. Great, I see we've got I think there should be a couple of microphones going around. If you could wait for those, please, just so that they can hear you on the live stream.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Nicholas here from Documented New York. Thanks for the conversation and the knowledge. What is the cost model of this process and of this technology? By this, I mean, what does it cost to send a message, or is it per conversation like in WhatsApp? For the one that sends the message, I mean.
I can answer this. We were expecting this to be the first question, so that's... at the moment, it's complicated because there's a lot of moving parts in terms of carriers and countries. It's free to receive RCS, but if you are the publisher and you are sending it out, there is a cost for a 24-hour conversation, but I can tell you it is a lot cheaper than the other way that you might be able to communicate with someone via message in that kind of conversation. So it's cheaper. Also, in different countries, different providers charge and some don't. So RCS is free to send in some places, completely free, and in other places or on one network, it might not be. So something that we've been working, and this is what's really fortunate working with Google, who have very good relationships with carriers and the CPaaS, the technical providers, is that we can talk to them and say, this is not an advertising campaign, it's got a different use case, what's the way that we might be able to experiment and understand? And so part of the data coming out of this we'll be able to go, look, to make it viable for news, which is a different use case, can we do it like this, or can we do this kind of deal? But going into this pilot, the costs are not prohibitive at all, and we firmly believe that with the ownership, with the kind of control of advertising, and you could have a sponsored flow, it should be a net gain if you were to do this. You should make more than it costs to deliver by a significant margin.
Any other questions?
Thanks so much. That was very interesting. I was wondering about user needs or user feedback, if you have gotten any, about how users feel about media being in their very private space that is messaging? I'm asking because I was in a group that did a test run in Germany for a large German news org, and it was in WhatsApp, so it's not as fancy as yours, but still, like the feedback was on the one hand side, it was really, really good, like the way we approached them, we talked to them, but on the other hand, there was still an uneasiness that we couldn't get rid of, that the media was being in their very private space, where they chat to their granny, to their family, to whoever. So I was wondering if maybe this is like specific for Germany, for the market, if there are other markets where, it's more usual that you get text from whoever, and what your feedback has been so far. Yeah. Thanks.
It's a really good question. I think the important thing to note about this as well is that it's separate from WhatsApp. So it's going to exist outside of your WhatsApp groups, your communications with your family and your friends. And perhaps, Styli, you can talk a little bit more to that.
Yeah, well, we see a lot of news being shared through WhatsApp, through our audiences. So we have a lot of that stuff going around. So it's maybe not as a big issue as potentially is in Germany. But then also a lot of this is triggered by user engagement, right? So it's not just they basically have to activate they activate the session.
Yeah, so just to build on that, there's quite a rigorous process for getting your agent approved to go out, and so there's lots of rules that you have to follow to make sure that you're not spamming people, that it's not an intrusive experience. But as Styli says, it's driven. You opt in. You kick this off. It also looks very different. So your family is not sending you a very nice curated, rich stream of messages. It's a completely different experience. But also people are, I appreciate that this is probably an iPhone room, but a lot of the world are already interacting with RCS on their phones. They are getting upgrade opportunities from their cell phone providers with a carousel saying which phone plan or which device they want to upgrade to. So they are, or airline tickets or train tickets or restaurant reservations or paying their council tax. So people are used to this already, and it's almost like the place where they receive a service. It's not that other thing. But I would love to come back in a year and tell you what we know about the audience after we start to get that data.
Watch this space. Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, Robert Mackenzie. I used to run innovation for BBC News. It's really interesting because it reminds me of some of the work we did with Facebook, actually. And I'm just wondering, from a user needs point of view, where are you seeing the value for audiences? Is it for people who want a quick fix of news or people who want more interaction with the news? Where do you see the value for the users is?
Question for me?
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I think this is a really top of the funnel exercise for us, for those younger audiences, especially on mobile devices, who we're seeing are not spending a lot of time with long-form journalism. So this is an opportunity to really experiment at that level and to see if we can break it down and change the format, build deeper relationships, more time, and get them to consume more than they currently do, and get in front of new younger audiences. And so I think what we're seeing in the different reports that are coming out from the industry with regards to news avoidance and how younger people especially want to consume or do consume news on platforms rather than on the actual news brand's homepage or site or app, this is an opportunity to kind of address some of that. And so I think that's where our focus is going to be in terms of addressing those needs, which are shorter form, interactive, on a native mobile experience.
I think it's like to both questions. It's worth bearing in mind this is a pilot. We are open to learning, and we need to learn from our audience. We need to learn what they want and how they will engage. we will then hopefully be in a position to grow it further and to answer all of these questions. But at the moment, if people just want short form, or if people want to watch full documentaries on it, we fully don't know yet. But we are keen to find out.
Thank you. And I just have one last question for Styli. Is Biscuit the dog ready for his newfound fame?
As I said, she's hungry for more, and she's used to it. She's got a first taste of fame, and yeah, sky's the limit.
Let's hope her ego doesn't get too big. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate it, and take care.